Good day, grade 3 learners, and welcome to today's English lesson. My name is Erica Gura, and this lesson is brought to you by Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Sci-Bono Discovery Centre and broadcast by Pakama Research and Development. So English Home Language Grade 3, Knowledge Area, Listening and Speaking. Topic is listening to a story. Our subtopic is listening to that story and answering questions, making sure that we comprehend. And the presenter is me, Erica Gura. Let's have a look at our lesson objectives. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to listen carefully to a story for understanding and enjoyment. We must always enjoy stories. Answer questions orally and write answers from an oral story using full sentences. Our prior knowledge is grade 2, has begun to develop comprehension skills through attentive listening, has begun to answer questions, understanding what the question requires of the learner, and writes grammatically correct answers using the skill of full sentences. This is the story that we're going to read today. I can't wait to read this story about the fox and the crow. You know what a crow is? A crow is a bird. And the fox is known to be a rather sly and cunning animal. Those words mean that he is clever and he likes to trick people. So let us see what the fox gets up to in this first story. Miss Crow sat on a tree, holding a piece of cheese in her beak. Can you see the crow with the cheese in her beak? Mr. Fox was attracted by the smell and tried to get the crow's attention. So there he is, sitting under the tree. He can smell the delicious cheese, and that's what gets his attention. That's what attracted by the smell means. He can smell it. Miss Crow, good day to you. You are a handsome-looking bird. I think that if your song is as beautiful as your plumage, that means feathers, you are the queen of this forest. So he's saying that the bird is beautiful. Handsome means beautiful, good-looking, lovely. And he's complimenting her on her beautiful feathers. That's a new word for you, plumage, plumage. And he said she's so beautiful that she could be the queen of the forest. Hearing these words, the crow felt so happy, and to show off her beautiful voice, she opened her mouth wide to sing and let her prey drop. The prey was the cheese that she had in her mouth. So she was going to sing a beautiful song, and she opened her beak and out dropped the cheese. Oh dear. The fox seized the cheese and said, "My good lady, you should know that everyone who believes flattery will come short in life." That means you will find problems in life. So if you believe flattery, that means you believing the compliments. Like the fox said to the crow, "You are beautiful, you are the queen of the forest." And she fell for it. She actually believed him. Shame. The crow had lost her cheese just because she thought the fox was complimenting her on her beauty. What do you think of that story? Do you think the fox was cunning and sly and tricked the poor crow? I think so. Let us have a look at some of those words that we learnt. Flattery. So flattery is when you give a lot of compliments to somebody. You say how wonderful they are, how beautiful they are, how sweet and glorious and handsome they are. And it seems to make people feel very good. And another word that means the same is complimenting somebody, but it's not over the top like flattery is. Flattery can really get too much. So complimenting is when you say to someone, "Oh, I like your new sneakers." "Oh, I like that dress you're wearing." That's a compliment. And then in the story, they used the word prey. So if a cat goes to go and catch a mouse and he's got the mouse in his mouth, that is his prey. That's not the same as pray to a god like P-R-A-Y. This is P-R-E-Y. So it's something that you eat, something that you catch and you eat. And what prey did the crow have? She had a lovely piece of cheese. The next word we learned was attracted. It said that the fox was attracted by the smell of the cheese. So that means it got his attention. He looked up, he could smell it, and he really wanted it so badly. The next one is attention. That means it got him thinking, it got him looking. He was attending to it. It got his attention. So it made him notice. Okay. The next one is handsome. Do you remember what we said handsome means? Really beautiful, gorgeous, good looking. And that's what he said the crow was. She was very handsome. And then that very new word to you was plumage. Plumage was the feathers. She had gorgeous feathers on her. Some birds have got very colorful plumage. Usually it's the male birds that have the lovely colors and the feathers that are beautiful. Did you know that? The men are the good-looking ones in the male world, in the bird world. The next word is beautiful. And there's a very easy way to remember how to spell beautiful. It's a word that some children struggle with a lot. So you can say to yourself, be a beautiful person. And then you can spell beautiful. Be a beautiful person. So we all would like to be a beautiful person, I'm sure, especially inside our hearts. Doesn't matter what we look like on the outside. The next word is quite an important one. It's an action verb, and it says seized. So the fox seized the cheese as soon as the crow had dropped it. He wasn't wasting any time whatsoever. He seized it. So it means he grabbed it quite quickly before the crow could get it again, of course. And then beauty is a noun from the word beautiful. You admire someone's beauty, or you compliment them on their beauty, how they look, how pretty they are. Very good. Right, now let's see how well you listened. We have to listen carefully with our ears. Let's see if you remembered what happened in the story and you listened well. So now we have to answer, who are the characters in this story? Characters means the people or the animals in the story. Do you remember the characters in our previous story? So in this one, we could say it was the fox and the crow. Those were the two characters in the story. What was the prey in the crow's mouth? Do you remember that word prey? It means something that you have caught to eat later. Like the lion had his prey in his mouth. He likes to catch buck. In this case, the prey in the crow's mouth wasn't an animal. It was a delicious piece of cheese. What made Fox interested in stealing the crow's cheese? What got his interest? What got his attention? What made him sit up and notice? Do you remember what it was? The fox smelt the delicious cheese. It must have been wafting down from the tree, and he was very interested. What is another word for feathers? Do you remember that word that begins with a P? Plumage. Very good. Plumage. And what can we learn from this story? What is the moral of this story? Do you think we can learn something from this story? Yes, we should not fall for people's flattery. We should be very careful when we are getting too many compliments. Maybe people are trying to trick us, and we shouldn't do that and lose our food. That would be disastrous. Right, in a moment, you are going to be writing your answers in your book in full sentences. So now we have to know, how do we do a full sentence? You must use words of the question. For example, if the question is, what color was the boy's shirt? You start with those words. The boy's shirt was blue, for instance. So we've used the words in the question. Now I'm going to show you a short little story, and then we are going to practice doing full sentences. There was once a boy who lived in Soweto. He was 9 years old and loved to play soccer and run races with his friends. He hated it when it rained, because then he could not go outside and play. His favorite color was blue, and he always wore blue shorts and blue and white sneakers. So now you've got a little bit of information from that story about the boy. Did you listen carefully? And now we have to practice answering some questions in full sentences, just so that you can get the hang of it. Let's look at these questions about the boy. The first one is, where did the boy live? So we're going to take those words from the question. The boy lived in Soweto. And if you forget, you can always look back at the story just to remind yourself. How old was the boy? So we start again with the boy was, and then we put his age in, 9 years old. What did the boy love to do? So we use those words again. The boy loved to play soccer with his friends and run races. Why didn't he like the rain? Again, we use those words. He didn't like the rain because then he couldn't play outside. And what was his favorite color? His favorite color was blue. Can you see that those are all full sentences, not just one-word answers? And that's how we have to answer in English. Let's have a look at this activity now. How could we start to answer these questions? Remember never to start with because. You cannot start a sentence with because. These are just random questions. They're not to do with any story. We are just practicing the skill of full sentences. What was the girl's name? So that part in green is what you start with. The girl's name was, and then you fill in whatever the girl's name was. Where did the granny go? So you start with the granny, and now we have to change go to went. The granny went to the shops, or whatever it is. How did the man know that his friend was lying? So that whole section has to go into the answer. And it's now in the past tense. The man knew that his friend was lying because, whatever the answer is. Why did the taxi driver change his tire? Now we have to use the taxi driver part again. The taxi driver changed his tire, blah, blah, blah. And the last one, what reason could you give for the woman arriving late? You could start with, the reason for the woman arriving late was, and you give the reason. So those are all full sentences, which is what I want you to do in your activity when you write your answers. Let us recall the story again and see what happened in the story. Do you remember still? So Miss Crow sat on a tree and she had a piece of cheese in her beak. Mr. Fox was attracted by the smell and he wanted to eat it. Mr. Fox decided to compliment the crow and say how pretty she was with her beautiful plumage. He challenged her to prove that her singing voice was as lovely as her feathers. So she sang, and when she opened her beak, she dropped her cheese, and the fox grabbed it and ate it up. You remembered well. Good. Right, this is our activity now, and you are going to answer these questions in full sentences in your books, like I showed you to do the full sentences, using the words of the question. Who are the characters in this story? What was the prey in the crow's mouth? What made Fox interested in stealing the crow's cheese? There was something that made him interested. What is another word for feathers? And what can we learn from this story? In other words, what is the moral? What can we learn for our own lives? Good. So what can we learn from this story? Let's go through it together. I think it's important. We must not allow ourselves to be tricked by others' flattery and compliments. We must not be vain and full of ourselves and always want to be beautiful. We do not have to hear that we are beautiful all the time. We must believe in ourselves and not listen when someone wants us to prove ourselves. Then we will keep our cheese, and in life this means we will be successful. And that is the moral of the story. Let us recall which words we have learnt. Plumage, meaning feathers. Flattery, meaning a lot of compliments about someone's beauty. Handsome, which means beautiful. Prey, which means something that you have caught so that you can eat it. And seized, which means grabbed, to take something quickly. Then you are going to pick one word to use in a wonderful sentence of your own, and you're going to write it in your book for me. And then you are going to read it aloud to all your friends. So pick any one of those words and use it in your own sentence. Our summary. Remember, don't let people trick you with flattery and compliments. Think carefully. Also, do not flatter others so that you can get your own way. Preview. The next lesson is about a wonderful poem about a grandmother. You're going to really enjoy that one. It's a very funny poem about a grandmother. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching this lesson. Please remember to sanitize, wear your mask, maintain social distancing, and keep safe. Until I see you next time. Bye-bye.